Alright, so what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of J&L Garage. Excuse me. So today we are back in the Dodge, in the shop. Sorry in advance if it's a little echoey. But it's gonna be an awesome video, and I'm real excited about it. I've got the tuner and everything right here. So I'll show that to you guys first. Here's the actual little tuner that they send you. Now this is from HD Diesel. And just a heads up, guys, right to start with, I'll go ahead and get this out the way. Now this is just a quick install, and then I have to take it right back off the truck, because it's no longer legal to do this to your truck in the United States. The EPA cracked down on it and made it illegal to have any of your emissions equipment removed from any of these vehicles. So I will be putting the factory stuff back on at the end of this video, but this is just for installation purposes. But this box also comes from HD Diesel, and it is the Flow Pro Delete system that used to be available here. And then I've also got a Diamond Eye DPF back performance exhaust. All it is, it's a 3-inch back to the dual setup that come factory on this truck. So we are going to be keeping that. We will be leaving this part of the kit on. I will be keeping this exhaust and everything from the DPF back, but we will be putting all of our, as you can see, good old exhaust fluid, the DPF, and the catalytic converter and everything back on. The very first thing we have to do is upload the tune. The tune has to be uploaded first successfully before you start removing any hard parts, which makes perfect sense. If you don't have the tune on there and you go ahead and put your exhaust on, you're gonna have all kind of engine codes. It's gonna probably shut the truck down, put it in limp mode. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna jump in and get on that, and I can kind of show you guys the process on that pretty easily. All right, so we are back in the truck, and on a remote start vehicle, you're going to want to hit the push button twice. You want the ignition accessory and all to be on, along with all your lights on the dash, any of your, like I've got air suspension, so my suspension lights and everything come on. And then down here on the device itself, we're going to want to go to tuning. And so HD Diesel does this a little differently. From what I understand, you used to have to send your actual ECM out from the truck itself to get tuned. So now, with the way HD Diesel does this, is they will, let me select yes on that. That's continue with writing of the file, and it's gonna be yes. But the big deal with this is now you just copy your original file onto here, and then you just mail it to them with your, or email it to them with your VIN number and your name. Once you upload it onto your computer, and then they will email you back the tuned file to upload back to this device, then upload to your truck. So the device comes with both a USB cable and a OBD2 cable to plug into here, so that you can plug it into either computer or here. Now this is, as you can see, the original file, and then I got the engine and trans combo. Because as much highway driving and stuff as I do in this truck, I want it to, if I'm already running 70 mile an hour, even though I'm going up a hill, there is no reason for me to be downshifting, in my opinion. And it says that this will help hold gears better. It's going to help with fuel mileage. The tune itself, without the transmission tune, is supposed to help with fuel mileage pretty drastically. This process is done. I can then move on to actually installing some of the hard parts. So we're gonna lay this guy here, and I'm gonna get out and do some explaining on what we're gonna be doing. I hope that didn't just come unplugged. Nope, it did not. So we're gonna set it up in the seat so it's nice and safe. It is still doing its thing, still plugged up good. So we're going to come back here and talk about some parts some more. So the very first thing that I want to do, because I believe it is by far going to be the hardest part, We got all our instructions there. It is going to be the EGR Delete Kit, block off and everything. So we're going to be actually getting rid of the entire EGR Cooler on this truck, even though it is brand new. And it sounds like the truck's going through its thing with the upload going on. So this is what we're actually going to be putting on first. So if I'm not mistaken, which I have all of it right here, this guy here is going to be the lower coolant block off. And then all of these instructions will actually tell you what piece goes where. The only thing that is slightly confusing, however, if you just read through everything before you start, it makes sense. You're not going to use B and C. You're either going to use one or the other. B is the rear turbo manifold block off plate, which is what most people use, because it completely takes the tube and everything off, from what I understand. And then C is just the optional riser tube block off plate. So you still have that tube in place. You just put the block off on it, from what I understand. Now, I haven't actually dug into this truck and taken any of this apart or really looked at it to see where all this goes, so I will update you guys as I go. As you guys know, I really don't get to film me doing the installation process. I just kind of have to update you guys as I go and show you, you know, what I ran into and what I think would be easiest. So this is definitely going to be the first thing that we tackle once the tune is completely done uploading. Then we are going to move on to the actual race kit here, which is from the turbo V-band clamp all the way back to where the muffler is. And then I'm going to probably have to do a little bit of cutting. I'm not exactly sure yet, but this kit is either supposed to be used, you could either use this kit and already have your aftermarket exhaust system on, and you cut one of your pipes to length, or you're going to be, I guess, doing it how I'm doing it, and that is with the whole system or leaving the stock system in place. So we will tackle this when we get there. For right now, I'm going to worry about getting this part on, and I will give you guys some short clips of how it looks as I go. And then hopefully when I get I'm going to get all of the stock stuff out, but I will probably go ahead and install this. But the one thing I do want to do is I want to give a side-by-side comparison of the two exhaust systems that I explained earlier. So I'm going to go check on the tune process. As soon as it gets done, we're going to rip off into the EGR block off. Alright, so ignore the ignorant dinging for just a second. As you guys can see, the writing is completed. Switch ignition off and disconnect the supply PG3, the HD diesel supply PG3. So we're going to hit OK on this guy. Alright, you guys, so under the hood, the one thing that I do know is that this guy right back here, see if you can see it better from the front. So basically that entire unit right there is the EGR Cooler, and we're going to be taking all of that off. So first things first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the intake completely off, back to the restrictor that we messed with in the first video that we ever had on the truck. I'm going to take the cover off, and then that way we can get to that EGR Cooler and start ripping it off. I'm going to disconnect the negative side of my battery because from what I can tell, this guy here, excuse me again, is mounted onto the EGR Cooler. And since we're doing away with this, this guy's got to come off here. So I'm gonna have to probably unplug it and everything. I don't know. I'm gonna do some more looking into it, and I'll let you guys know what I find out. But that's where we're at right now. Disconnect the battery. We're gonna get this pipe off. Then we're gonna look into this wiring harness and see where it goes. All right, you guys. So at this point in time, as far as I've gotten, is I do have my main harness unplugged. I also have this little sensor here for the EGR Cooler. I've got the tube off, the intake tube, and I also took the actuator off. And the reason I'm filming now is because the EGR Block Off kit comes with a vacuum plug, and that is what this is for, is because the actuator, show you guys real quick, it's got a tube here, right? It's vacuum actuated to open up the EGR, and it just slides onto a little nipple that is on the intake that I'm going to show you guys now. And I want to go ahead and put this on so I do not forget it. Then when you go to fire it up, you have a vacuum leak that is very hard to diagnose. So that is where the plug goes right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw it on, I hope. There it is. So now that is capped off, and that is one thing done. So I wanted to make sure I got that on there so I didn't forget. I would suggest you guys do the same thing. As soon as you get the actuator off there, or just as soon as you unplug it, go ahead and cap it. So that way you don't forget. All right, so finally figured out something with this big harness here. It's just the little aggravating plastic rivets that go through it. Excuse me. But also you guys need to get this unplugged. Now this was aggravating for me, but you're supposed to just have to pull the little yellow tab up and then this just slides straight off. There's no actual second clip. Now that I've got this unplugged, the next thing that I done was I've pulled this coolant off here, or coolant hose, junction plate, whatever they want to call it, off. And it is recommended to drain some of the coolant out of the reservoir. I drained a little bit. I think they say usually about a gallon will keep the mess down. I have no idea how much I actually drained out. I just know that when I started draining, of course my coolant overflow went down some, but then when it got to here, it kind of just stayed there and was still draining. So I let it drain for, you know, a good couple seconds with the cap off. And I got a pretty decent amount out. If I make a little bit of a mess in my floor, I'm not going to be that upset. But anyways, so next thing is I'm going to pull that junction plate off, and then I'm going to have to kind of see where I need to go from there. I think the next thing we're going to be doing is possibly pulling this lower coolant hose off, and probably going to be getting started on actually taking the bracketry off to get this cooler off. But I will update you guys when I get to that point. Alright you guys, so the EGR cooler is off. So there's a little bit of explaining to do, not a whole lot. But basically, you have this bracket here that mounts on the side of the EGR cooler that has a clip built into it to hold the harness on it. So it mounts right there. 3 10mm bolts holds it on. You're going to want to take it off first to give you easier access to the lower mount bolts. Now up here is where our front coolant hose was. If you imagine the side of the engine here, you're going to take these 3 13 mils off, but before you take these guys off, I recommend taking off the part that actually mounts to your turbo. Now this is going to be 2 10mm bolts as well. You may have some set that can get to it. I have very basic tools as of right now. As you guys know, I just got my shop not too long ago, but I had to use 2 10mm bolts. Now I've seen a lot of guys fight with this because technically you can stop here. The EGR valve and actuator and the tube is everything is off. This kit gives you the option of how much work you actually want to do. Now you can actually block this guy off right here, and you're done, and then you can actually start on your exhaust. So that's what I was talking about earlier, where it says you can use one bracket or the other. You're either going to use C bracket or B bracket. They want you to use the B bracket because it actually deletes the entire heat riser tube and everything. C bracket, this guy here, will actually go onto that tube that you see right there under the hood. This guy here is your intake plate, obviously. And you can tell these apart. This guy's got more of like a teardrop shape to it. This is just a symmetrical diamond, so to speak. But now I'm going to be actually trying to get this guy on. I believe I can do it. I don't think it's going to be tough, don't get me wrong, but one thing that I wanted to clear up though is I've seen a couple videos now since I started this of people removing this EGR cooler and stuff, and for some reason they want to go straight to trying to take the tube out with it. Now I may learn the hard way here in a minute that I should have done it that way, but I don't see how. I would have just did it the way I done it. Take your cooler off first, then you can fight the tube and the cooler's not in your way. That way you can block everything off and you're... Alright you guys, so I did some looking around under the truck, and there's no possible way I can get the camera up in there to where I can show you guys. But basically, from what I seen, what I need to do now in order to make this easier on me is I'm going to start removing the exhaust. So basically, in order to get to those 3 bolts that come off of the other end of that tube there, it's back on the back side of the engine taking apart the exhaust, because since I've got all of these pieces anyways, there's a V-band clamp right there at the end of my finger that actually mounts to the turbo outlet itself. That's got to come off anyways in order for me to put the Flow Pro system on. So I'm going to be removing that. Now you can't start there. Where you actually want to start is you want to start back where the DPF mounts to the muffler. So I'm going to get under there and spray some clamps and bolts with some PB Blaster. Hopefully it'll help loosen all that good stuff up, and it'll make it easier coming out for us. And then I'm going to work from the muffler forwards, taking all of this off. And then hopefully, I believe, when I get under there again, I'll try to show you guys what I'm talking about. But where the cat and everything is literally taking up this big area where you could easily get your arm in there with a, I believe they're 8mm bolts, or 10mm. I believe they're 8s though, to get right on that bracket and be able to get it loose. So since I'm already doing all of that anyways, I'm going to go on ahead and rip all that out from under here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I will show you guys some update somewhere along the line. Maybe right before I pull that pipe out there, I'll show you guys how much more room you're going to have in order to do this. Alright you guys, so lots of struggles later, I finally got the cat and the DPF out. This was by far the hardest part. I was really thinking that the EGR was going to be the tough part, but I was wrong. These 2 guys right here were definitely the tough part. And it's getting on into 6 o'clock. So so I'm gonna be trying to make this quick, but it wasn't for nothing. I can get to those 3 bolts easier now. Alrighty, so we're rolling up under the truck real quick. See if I can get positioned halfway here. So that guy right there, you can see the triangle style setup. That's that tube that runs back up into the engine bay. So that's the guy you got to get to. And as you can see, like the cat came down right in here. The largest part of the cat was right here, taking up that entire cavity. So now that is going to be much easier to get to now that you have that out. Even if you weren't, I mean, if you're going to be doing the delete, then you're obviously going to have a tune that deletes the cat and everything. Even if you're not running the exhaust, it's more than likely worth it to fight this cat out from under here, and then to go ahead and do it that way. But I am, like I said, on a time crunch, and I am also running out of time. So I'm going to get that tube loose and out of there, hopefully. And then I'm going to go ahead and install the block off plate. Alright you guys, so I finally got that back block off plate put on. Nothing really special to show you guys under there. Once you get that pipe out, it is so easy to get to that block off plate. So in my opinion, I would just remove that section of the exhaust, because if you're going to be doing a delete, you're going to be turning all of that off anyway, so I don't see why you wouldn't be removing all that. Now the other thing, I've already installed the intake block off plate. It's on there and good. And now I don't know if anybody else will run into this issue or not, but one of the rear bolts for that rear block off plate actually ended up twisting off. It started to come loose. It maybe went 2 full turns, and the head of it snapped off. And I could not get it out for the life of me, because HD Diesel actually supplies you with 3 10mm bolts to go back in there to hold that block off plate on. And I was not able to do that. So what I ended up doing is I had some lock nuts here, but I ended up putting a lock nut and a flat washer on there to seal all that off. And now that I've got both those block off plates on, the next thing I'm going to be going to is the lower coolant hose block off. But now before I can do that, I have got to get the rest of this guy off here, because you have a straight hose adapter. Let's see, let me go ahead and bring the instruction booklet over here. So that's going to be this guy. You're going to have this guy go into those 2 coolant hoses, so that way you don't have the route for the coolant to go into an EGR cooler, because you no longer have that. Now this extension here, I do not know where this goes. Let's see here, they're labeled the same thing. H, rubber hose and connection reducer to connect coolant lines. So I'm not sure if maybe you have to have this this extension to connect to something, but there's only those 2 coolant lines there, and that's really it. So I'm not sure. I know that where this goes, and I know how it goes on. This guy's going to bolt back up into 2 of the 13mm lower bracket mounts for the cooler. So you're going to reuse 2 of those 13mm bolts. They're going to go back on here, and then HD Diesel supplies you with 2 nuts to go back on your factory hardware that connected the lower coolant hose, and I'll have to dig that out. I'm not sure which one is which. I haven't been doing a very good job at separating because I have been in a hurry. But I'm gonna get that off. All right, you guys, so made a little more progress. Wanted to update you guys real quick. Let me set my flashlight down. So this is the coolant block off plate, lower coolant block off plate, and it is on there. It mounts back up like I was talking about with the 2 13mm bolts, just the top 2, and then you're going to reuse, I'm not sure, I don't remember them being this long, so I may have gotten these bolts and these bolts up here mixed up, but these bolts have plenty of thread in them and they're good and tight, and I'd rather have the longer bolt down here. This bolt here is actually longer than the one that I put in the intake, but nonetheless, these longer bolts are fine. Gives you plenty to go through both of these brackets here. Make sure to reuse the factory gasket, or if yours is tore or tears when it's coming off, make sure to get you a new one. Mine was in good shape. And then also wanted to talk about this little piece here. This extra little ear is for these mounting tabs for your harness to snap back into, which is that's really nice. And then it talks about zip tying the smaller harness up, but I believe what was actually supposed to happen is there's another bolt hole right, or it's not a bolt hole, it's another mount hole right there, and I believe this guy was maybe supposed to snap in there, but mine ended up breaking pulling it off, and I may have just got too rough with it, but anyways, it's broke. So what I'm gonna actually do is the smaller harness that they're talking about, I'm lost. I don't know where that's at. Because everything in here is pretty snug. This is going to be under the air intake. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use those zip ties to zip tie to this, I believe is part of the AC. I don't think it'll have any problems. I'm just going to kind of loosely zip tie it so it can't just flop around. Even though whenever you mount this, I think it's going to be okay. But as you can see, everything's loose, so I'm gonna get all that tightened back up. And also, the only other thing that I've done is installed the hose coupler here, and I need to zip tie it up because it is getting really, really close to the turbo outlet. But another thing with this is that the reducer that came with it was too small on the bigger side, because you have a smaller side coming from your heater core inside your truck, and then this bigger side here that is actually rerouting itself back into the engine was bigger than the big side of the reducer. So make sure to use the hose clamps. I actually had to get a bigger one. I couldn't get any of the ones they sent me to fit, and I'm gonna have to double check all this for leaks and everything when I get everything fired up and back running. But I got this good and tight, and then I've also got the top one good and tight as well. I didn't reuse either one of the factory clamps, just because I definitely don't want any leaks, and I don't really believe in those squeeze clamps that will much anyways. But I'm going to get all this tight, and I'm also going to get this harness snapped into place, and we should be done up here. The up top portion of this install should be done. We should be ready to move on to the exhaust. So I'll let you guys see this one last time whenever I'm done with it, because I need to take some pictures as well, and then we'll be moving on. Alright, so everything down here is tight and sealed up as best as possible, and I did not think about it, but I'm not going to be able to really see any of this stuff because I have to have the MAF hooked up in order for the truck to run. So I'm just going to have to pay attention under the truck and make sure we don't have any leaks and drips. But what I ended up doing is using an old bracket hole there to hold my coolant hose back away from the turbo outlet. So that's all good. And then I've started putting the intake back together, obviously. And I think the only thing I have left now is the lid and the actual MAF sensor itself. And then the hood is good. As long as there's no leaks, I would be able to close it. But we're going to leave it open because I still got to hook the battery cable back up whenever I get completely done. And I also need to be able to check for coolant leaks if anything starts dripping from under the truck. So I'm going to finish buttoning this up, and then I'm going to move on to putting the downpipe in where the V-band clamp is. And then hopefully the next clip I will have the downpipe in and getting started on the DPF delete pipe as well. Alright, you guys, so I've been getting some stuff done because I am running out of time more and more with each passing second. But basically, I'm not going to lay this out exactly side by side. You can see the comparison. There's the new muffler. And I do believe it is a single chamber design, so it is going to have much more sound to it, but I did not want this truck completely like turbo back straight piped, because we do plan on taking a lot of long trips in the old girl, and I don't want it to get just overbearingly annoying trying to, take trips in it. But I thought that I wasn't going to have time to even really finish the video, but once I got the old stuff off, the new stuff is sliding on very, very easy, and it's fairly simple to put together. So as of right now, see if I can get this shot without having to get the creeper out. Let's see here. So as of right now, we have the DPF delete pipe in along with the turbo down pipe. And all that stuff is loose in there. The only thing that I've done is I've hung the DPF delete pipe in its bracket, along with putting the clamp over that connection. and then from there I've been fighting the factory exhaust off. But one thing I will compare is the size of tubing that we're going to have from the muffler back. I'm not sure what stock is. Looks like maybe 2.5, 2 1/4, but 3-inch is what we're going back on with. I mean, all the way back from the turbo back. And we're definitely going to have a lot more noise out of it, obviously. I mean, look at all the stuff that's come off, right? These 2 items here are completely deleted. They're gone. But pretty much from here, this is a Diamond Eye system here, DPF back, and they've got instructions here that tells you how to put this on and in what order. So I'm not going to really, just go into detail. Basically, I'm going to hang these 2 pipes first, the 2 pipes that go over the axle. Then you're going to go on ahead and connect the muffler to it. And then we're going to go ahead and hang the rear section tailpipes, and then we're going to leave the tips for last. I can put them on after I've completely got done tightening the exhaust system and everything. And now this pipe here, I've actually got 2 of these. They're not the exact same length. I don't know which one I'm going to need. But this pipe here, I got one that came in the Flow Pro kit and in the Diamond Eye kit. So I may have to do some trimming, or hopefully, I'm really hoping that one of them just fits up there nice and snug, and we can clamp her down and let her go. But we're going to have to see. So I'm going to get to hanging some exhaust. All right, you guys. So as you can see, we have broken out the Sawzall. We are going to have to make a cut, which I've already made one cut. I completely missed this part of the directions for the Flow Pro system, but they make the Flow Pro system to accompany either a 6.4 or a 5, or it's actually made from the factory for a 6.4 box. And I thought for sure that I had a 6.4 box, but I do not. It's a 5.7. I'm not sure how I got that mixed up, but anyways, not that big a deal. But the main thing is that if you have the 5.7 box, you're supposed to cut 7 inches off the end that doesn't have the hanger. So I've already done that. It's back up under the truck and in the hanger, and lined up. And then I went on ahead and hung my muffler back up on the tailpipes that are already in, and I ended up getting a measurement from the end of the DPF or the DPF delete pipe to the flush, the face of the actual muffler. So not the pipe that's coming out, but the face of it. I can show you right here, actually. So I measured from this face here out, not from the end of this pipe. And so I'm going to be cutting off this end out here. We're only going to have this much. Now, I did not accompany this into my measurement because this is going to be slipped over the DPF delete pipe. So the only measurement is from here to here. I ended up getting 4 1/4 inches. It's going to give me plenty of slip fit inside the muffler. And I'm obviously not touching this part of it. So this is going to be the same. That's the part that slips over the exhaust. Fixing to finish this up. We may end up leaving the tips off until this coming up weekend, just because I've got work in the morning. It's already almost 10 o'clock. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. All right, you guys. I'm whooped to start with. But we should be done. I gotta put some coolant in it. I finally managed to wrestle the exhaust on. It was an absolute nightmare. I ended up having to take everything up to the turbo off, from the muffler to the turbo, and then put it on piece by piece from the muffler back up to the turbo. And then it was a nightmare getting the V-band back on. But once I got it all kind of up there and supported and got the V-band tight, it all fell in place really easily. But anyways, now then, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hook the battery cable up. And then I'm going to start I'm probably gonna go ahead and start it, honestly, and then top it off with coolant. And I'm not gonna be able to film while I'm checking for exhaust leaks anyways. It's way too late and everything else, so I'm not that worried about it. But all right, so I'm freezing my ass off, but she's officially running. I double checked all my exhaust clamps. I have a slight leak on one piece, but I believe if I tighten it up a little bit, I could get it out. I'm not that worried about it tonight, because I'm gonna end up taking it through a couple of heat cycles throughout the week on my way to work and back, and then I'm gonna recheck everything anyways. But as of right now, I have no leaks. However, I am afraid that back there at that coolant hose there, that's going to the heater core, if I remember correctly. And I don't think that it's going to get any actual water flow until the thermostat opens up and we come up to temp. So it's only been idling for a couple seconds. As you can see, we're only at 77 degrees on the coolant temp right now. Thing about these diesels is it's gonna take it forever sitting here idling to come up to temp, especially now that I've deleted everything, all of the restrictions, everything that would be normally holding that hot gas air, that exhaust gas up in the exhaust is now gone. It's no longer in there. So that's gonna be an issue for me during cold starts whenever I'm gonna be freezing when I come out to my truck, such as in the morning. She sounds good. Sounds really deep. And I gotta get both of my exhaust pipes centered a little better. I'm gonna warm up for just a little while longer, just so I'm gonna give it as many chances for there to be a leak as possible before I pull it out of here, because the last thing I want to do is go to get in it in the morning and you know, if I just so happen to get it up to temp just as I pull in up under the carport, the last thing I want is for this thing to have coolant sitting all under it, and then I've got to, you know, rush to hurry up and find a way to work. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm shutting it down there. I am super happy it's done. It's going to be a blast getting to drive this thing tomorrow and actually feeling out the tune. I will be, you know, giving out a review of the tune and the exhaust, you know, with a little more time on it as I go. And hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope it helped someone. If you got any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. This is a HD diesel delete with a Diamond Eye DPF back exhaust. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So much weight savings. It's off there. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And as always, you guys have a good one.